Hi, welcome back to Outdoor Gear and Skills. I wanted to talk a little bit today about 72-hour pack. Some people might call it a go bag. Sometimes those are kind of different though. But I want to tell you kind of what has happened to us. Now I live here in Roseburg, Oregon, or just outside Roseburg, Oregon. And Roseburg is between Medford and Eugene. And so we're about 2 hours north of the California border. So we had a fire in our house, in our kitchen, about 7 weeks ago. So we haven't been living in our house. And many of you may know there were terrible forest fires going on for a little more than the last 2 weeks here in Oregon, all over the place. Our home was threatened with this forest fire, so potentially a second fire. Thankfully, everything's okay. It didn't affect us. It didn't get our immediate neighbors. But it did wipe out 109 houses in the small towns of Glide and Idlewild Park, just a few miles away from us. So we were living in the Hampton Inn here in Roseburg for a little over a month. You may recall I had bicep repair surgery, and when I did my last video, it was about adaptability and kind of the bags I was carrying with me because my arm was in a sling. So I've got a lot of mobility and everything. I still can't lift a lot, but I'm not supposed to lift more than 5 pounds, but I can move my arm a lot, and scarring and everything's doing really well. So when I was still in a sling, they evacuated our town. They were kind of going section by section, and then they did an evacuation for everything when the fire was pretty imminent. It got pretty close to us. We ran back out to the house, to the garage, to get some of our stuff. So I had my 72-hour kit. It's an Osprey backpack here that I'm going to show you in just a minute. And when we had our house fire, all of our bags and backpacks, all of those things had to get washed. So we just dumped all the contents into a couple of boxes. The company took all the stuff to go clean it out, wash all the bags, and then brought them back. My arm's in a sling, so I'm not thinking too much about it. You know, I'm going to get back to repacking things when my arm's healed and I'm able to move. Then we have this fire, and there is talk that Roseburg, where we're staying, which is about 15 miles from our house, may have to evacuate as well. We don't have any duffel bags. We don't have any backpacks. We don't have any type of any containers, bags that we can pack in if we were to have to leave the hotel and leave Roseburg. So that was kind of a real big slap in the face. I'm kind of real big on planning and preparation and that kind of thing. 12:30 a.m., my brother-in-law and my 2 boys and I go back out. We grab all of the boxes of the contents, everything that we need. Actually, I take that back. We had done that earlier that afternoon. We had to go back to get our dog that a neighbor was kind of watching. So we had to go back in the middle of the night. So the next day, we got our backpacks and we kind of went through everything. Now we're pretty good at evaluating our backpacks every April and October. And we do that usually the first weekend of the month. And there's just a thing that we have every 6 months that we coordinate with. And we've had growing kids. So we kind of went through and made sure all the clothes fit. And we went through and we had some things that were like cheap headlamps that had either broken or the batteries had corroded in them and they were kind of garbage anyway. So we just chucked all of that stuff. We got everything that was essential for all 5 of us across the board. And then we split up other things like a compass or extra paracord or extra duct tape or things like that. And we really just kind of got ready. At that point, I was to the point where I could at least get a backpack on, and I still couldn't lift a lot, but I could carry a pack. So what I want to show you is kind of what I did. Now this does need some work. I've got to update that, and that's on my list this week. But I had to get it to where I could at least be ready to go. So this is my pack. Looks like it's an Osprey Atmos 50. I bought this years and years ago. I may have gotten it at a gun show. I don't quite remember. It was in Utah in any case. But it gives me a couple of good outside pockets here. So I put a couple of things in here that I think are really important. Number one, I've got 100 feet of paracord. To me, this is worth its weight. I can do so much with this. I love knot slashings. I really understand that stuff. And so to me, vital right here. I've also got my current knife that I have in here is my SC4. I chose this one specifically for the orange handle in case I were to set it down, then I wouldn't lose it. In Utah, when I first bought this years and years ago, it was really a lot of the blade configurations, handle configurations. I could set it down, it might get lost. If it fell into the bushes, I may not be able to see it, but with the orange handle, I really like that. I'm a huge fan of these SE knives. I really like this one. This is a great camping knife, nice sturdy Kydex sheath. So that's my current knife in here. Let's see if I've got anything else in this pocket. So we're clear right there. On the other side, in this pocket, I have a life straw. Now this is really important. So one thing that has happened with us is that living out in Glide, we are less than half a mile from multiple access points to the North Umpqua River. So one of the things we had to learn about when we moved here 4 years ago was how the waterways work here. So there is the North Umpqua River, and now in this rental house that we're staying in, behind me not too far over here is the South Umpqua River, and they join and become the Umpqua River, and then they go all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. The North Umpqua River is faster moving, it flows well. I accidentally, when we first moved here, drank out of the garden hose in the rental house we were in, and I did that a few times, and then I realized it was actually pumping directly out of the river, so I was drinking unfiltered river water. Thankfully, I didn't get sick. The South Umpqua is a totally different story. It's slow moving. There's all kinds of bacteria and things in it because it's not moving quickly. So for us, where we're shifting, our water is a major concern. Out at the house, we had plenty of water stored, plus I had a few life straws and some other filtration things. But for me, this is really vital in how I can access water. I know it's there, I can get to it, I just have to be able to filter it. So very important for me right there. I've also got Leatherman in here. This is, for those of you that have been around quite a while, this is a Leatherman PTS2. I have had this thing for over 20 years. I don't know when they stopped making it. I have the original PST. This one has a serrated blade, some different things. I just really like this. I'm a big Leatherman fan, but it's just nice and compact. It works well. Nice tight sheath right there. So I want this with me so at least I have some type of tool. And then I have my Surefire. It's a 6P. This was one of the first lights that I got from Surefire. The reason I keep this one in here, and it looks like I maybe need to switch out my batteries, is that it has a lockout. And so I can turn the handle and lock it out. To me, that's really important so it doesn't fry my batteries inside my backpack. So with that, I also have more paracord, like I said, very important. And to me, you just can't have enough paracord. Maybe I should check that. And then I have a small Phoenix E01 flashlight. It runs off a AAA battery, nice and light, pretty bright flashlight though. So it gives me a good secondary source of light there. Also longer run time than the Surefire light that runs off the lithium batteries. Okay. So all of that's great. Now we get to the part where I do need to do some upgrading on here. I do have a first aid kit. It's a Lifeline kit. It's a fairly kind of hard case. Good base. I put some extra stuff in here. I put duct tape. I put lip balm. I added one of the saws, the wire saws in there just in case. Added a couple of individually wrapped small tampons just for nosebleeds, emergencies, anything where I'm really kind of getting in a pinch. So having this so that I can at least help treat some of the stuff. The reality is if we get something major like a compound fracture or something like that, and we are not able to get to a hospital or that kind of thing, we're in a big problem. I don't have a medical background, so at least that's going to help me with the stuff I'm most likely to encounter. So food is one of the things that I need to update in here. Right now, I've got some Gatorade mixes, a couple protein bars, and I've got some goo. This one's root beer flavor. It's an energy gel. Some people don't like these. It is kind of like swallowing Elmer's glue, but it tastes like root beer, so that's good. And then one thing that I've thrown in here, and this is probably what I'm going to add more of, is the mainstay energy food rations. So each one of these bars, and there's 9 in here, has 400 calories. I've got a total of 3,600 calories on here. So this is not going to be nearly the same as eating a home cooked meal. It is dense. It's a little bit heavier than other things, but it is going to be overall, I think, lighter than other stuff I can carry with me. So I do need to get more of this. And then a couple of different dehydrated foods. Now, one of the things that we run into is my wife has a gluten allergy. So we kind of had to change some of the stuff, and we did that in our hotel room a few weeks ago to make sure that she had stuff that she could eat that's not going to give her problems. I threw in here a pair of binoculars. It's fairly small, just so I can scout and see, whatever it is. Here in Roseburg, it's quite a bit different than in Utah. In Utah, where we lived, nice big valley. You can see really far. You've got good line of sight. Here in the Roseburg area and in our southern Oregon here, the hills, there's so many hills up and down. Line of sight's really hard, but just being able to see, what's going on and getting a proper evaluation is really important. The label came off of this, but this is tuna. Tuna. So I've got a couple of those in there just to give me some of that. Box of Gobstoppers, just to give me something. I eat these a lot when I'm on road trips, so that's something I'm accustomed to. Then I put in here cotton balls that are dipped in Vaseline for fire starting. Not that we need any of that right now with everything that's going on. Rescue tape. I bought this at the Crossroads of the West gun show in Utah probably 13, 14 years ago. It stretches about 5 times its current length, and it adheres to itself. So a lot of applications on this. I've actually used this as first aid to help wrap and stop bleeding. We've used it for crack hoses on our car and things like that. This stuff is fantastic. I know there's a knockoff at Harbor Freight, but this is well worth the money, and it's not very expensive. Some dental floss with the needle right there, unless things really get terrible. Just in case things really get terrible. And I threw this in. This was an ace bandage wrap with a few gauze pads here. I don't know if I'm going to keep this in there, but when I had surgery for the first 2 weeks, I had to keep that totally wrapped up. Even after the stitches came out at the 2-week mark, it wasn't quite healed, so I had steri strips on it. So for me, that was important to be able to keep this clean so that I'm not getting infections or anything like that. These are my old mountain bike shoes that I threw in here. I'm actually going to throw a different pair of shoes in here because if I have to go hiking or up and down a lot of hills, they're not going to be the best, but they do have a lot of wear left on the sole after a few seasons of mountain biking. So at least it's closed toe protection there. And then I got a couple small things. I've got some earplugs. I have some dryer lint for starting fires. This was an old patch repair kit that I've got 2 extra batteries for my Surefire flashlight, the lithium 123s, in case those wear out. I've got a flannel shirt to help with temperature control. I put in here one of my Tough Mudder t-shirts because it is the Under Armour instead of the cotton t-shirts. If I have to be out hiking, doing whatever, I want something that's going to breathe better for me than cotton. So I've got that packed. I tend to wear those a lot more. But I do have a cotton shirt in here because it is my Corvette shirt that I've had way back when I used to have a 1978 Corvette. Got this down in Las Vegas and it's getting holes in it, but it's a great shirt. I love it. All right, so I've got a belt, an extra belt. I usually always wear one, but just to help keep my pants up. A good pair of leather gloves. Whatever I'm doing, if I have to chop wood, if I'm touching whatever, I want to make sure that my hands are protected. All right, then I've got a couple pair of socks. And then just have some webbing for any number of uses that go along with my paracord. I just have a pair of that I painted in, but just a pair of basketball shorts to keep me cool. It is starting to change. We are getting into warmer weather, but if I need to be out and just kind of preserve my long pants or anything like that and sleep in shorts or anything, or if I need to be around the water, that will help out. I've got an extra pair of pants in here. So these are polyester cargo pants. These are Wrangler. I believe I got them at Walmart. Very breathable and nice there. Takes up a lot of space, but I threw in a towel. It's a pretty big towel. For us, if we have to get in the water for whatever reason, if it's raining, if we get wet, if I can keep this dry, to help get us, I can also use it for sun protection or a little bit of my shelter or anything like that. Another pair of socks and just another extra magazine right there. So, and my last thing in here is a golf ball. So the reason I throw a golf ball in there is I can do a lot of things like that, but if I'm on my feet a lot, it starts to hurt. I can put that golf ball on the floor and roll it around and kind of work out any knots or soreness in my feet. I've also, sometimes my back flares up and I can lay on that on the ground. It gives me a good pressure point to help work out those tight muscles. So I always have one of these in my bag. I do need to add more food. The other thing that we dealt with is we had in Utah, because we were not around a water source, being on the east side of the Wasatch Front, we tried to carry several water bottles. That gets very heavy. We do need to go back and add a couple into here so we at least have something for that initial time frame. But what we're looking at in the terrain where we live and everything, we are much more urban right now than we are living out in Glide 15 miles away. There's houses that are close around. My water source isn't as clean and as plentiful, but we just had the worst fires in Oregon history come ripping through most of the western part of the state. And it looked like we may have had to leave, and we were really trying to figure out, where do we go from here? Where are all of these people going? There were thousands and thousands of people in Oregon displaced. And for us, we kind of had someone's house here to Roseburg to fall back to, but then that became our primary base. And then where do we go from there? So that is something that we are revising our plan. We're also revising our plan of what do we grab if we have to get out of here quickly. The fires still aren't out. They could become more of a threat, but the nice thing is we have clear skies again. We're breathing clean air instead of that terrible, terrible smoke that we had for so long. But to me, this is important. So to give you an idea of where we are at, My youngest daughter and my two boys live with us. My daughter's, she's almost 20, and then my boys are 17 and 15. So we're to the point where they can carry their own stuff. They can walk, they can hike. We don't have little kids anymore. And so our demographic with our family has changed and what we have to account for. But what we want to do is avoid trying to scramble in a situation where the sheriff knocks on the door and says, you got to get out of here right now. Fires come raging through, or other things like that that we have to be aware of. So for us, the backpacks are a great way to do it because it can carry what we need. One thing I just realized that I haven't put in here is an emergency bag and a blanket, like a small fleece blanket. So those are a couple things I've got to go back and add. But for us, we've got our Ford Explorer right here, 4-wheel drive. It holds all of us. We can throw our bags in it. It allows us to get out of here. But we may get stuck in traffic. Roads may not be passable. We may have to hike. And so that's why we've chosen to go this route. But I hope that's helpful. One of the things I think is just important is to evaluate your surroundings. Where do you live? What are your exit points? What does that terrain look like? What do the seasons look like? We're coming up into a rainy season. For us, a lot of the area out past Glide where we're going to live, or where we're going back after our house is rebuilt, will be having problems with mudslides and things like that because of all the trees and foliage that were burned out. So it's really important to do that and just kind of see what is the best thing that you can do. Anytime we travel between Utah and Oregon, which we're going to be doing here shortly, making sure that we have these with us in case we get stuck. It's a over 800-mile trip, and we want to make sure that we're okay. If you have any questions or any comments, things that you think I should throw in here that I have not, it's most likely I have it in a bucket in my garage now that I've got to add to it. But appreciate your comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Outdoor Gear and Skills.